Administrator Shah, welcome back to the committee. You come at a time when USAID is making headlines for, in my mind, doing nothing more than the job you were appointed to do. Let me say for the record, when it comes to the issue of Cuba or your work in any closed society, I do not believe that USAID's actions, as clearly articulated in your mission statement to promote, quote, resilient democratic societies that are able to realize their potential, are in any way a cockamamie idea. I believe it is exactly what the people of Cuba, Iran, Burma, Belarus, North Korea, and other authoritarian nations need to help them communicate with each other, to help them achieve USAID's stated mission of a, quote, free, peaceful, and self-reliant society with an effective, legitimate government. So I commend you for helping people have a less controlled platform to talk to each other, for helping them to find a way to connect and to share their views. Global Internet freedom programs, U.S. international broadcasting, and support for human rights activists are all fundamental components of our country's long-standing efforts to promote democracy overseas. For more than 50 years, the United States has had an unwavering commitment to promote freedom of information in the world. Our work in Cuba is no different than our efforts to promote freedom of expression and uncensored access to information in the Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Iran, China, or North Korea. It should be noted that in the fiscal year 14 Senate Foreign Operations Bill, there is $76 million set aside to promote global Internet freedom and democracy in closed societies like Cuba, where the regime allows no independent press and limits access to the Internet. It also states that, quote, with respect to the provision of assistance for democracy, human rights, and governance activities, that these programs, quote, shall not be subject to the prior approval by the government of any foreign country. It's common sense that we shouldn't ask the government of Iran or Egypt or China for permission to support advocates of free speech, human rights, or political pluralism, or to provide uncensored access to the Internet or social media. At the end of the day, just giving people the opportunity to communicate with the outside world and with each other is, in my mind, a fundamental responsibility of any democracy program. As Bill Gates said, quote, the Internet is becoming the town square for the global village of tomorrow. And he's right. But to go one step further, the town square will become more free and inclusive thanks to the democracy efforts of organizations like USAID. And let me just close on this one point. I think it is dumb, and even dumber to go ahead and suggest that there can be freedom, and we should seek freedom of Internet access and freedom of expression globally, but that somehow the people of Cuba don't deserve the same freedom. And I will finally say on this topic, there is only one entity responsible for the imprisonment of Alan Gross, and that is the Cuban regime. It is not this government, it is not AID, it is the Cuban regime. And I'm tired of blaming ourselves when the entity that should be blamed is the regime that unlawfully holds an American in prison for doing nothing but having the Jewish community in Cuba be able to communicate with each other. It's pretty outrageous. Now, finally, with reference to the overall priorities of the budget, we look forward to your perspective on how we can make certain that U.S. development assistance is aligned with overall U.S. foreign policy, and I look forward to hearing about your priorities for the fiscal year 2015 AID budget. I know I speak for all of the members when I say how impressed I've been by your creativity and energy, which has been essential to USAID reform, and to your agency's pursuit of international development priorities in ways that focus on best practices and results. As we have discussed on numerous occasions before, I do, however, as I said to the Secretary when he was here, remain deeply concerned about the resources for the Western Hemisphere. They are insufficient to meet the challenges of the region and its importance to our own economic prosperity, security, and our shared interests in health and development. So that is something that we look forward to continuing to engage you on. And while efforts to address the challenges of domestic and transnational criminal networks pose the greatest short-term threat to stability in the region, a long-term strategy that boosts economic growth and consolidates the rule of law is fundamental, and it is, in my view, currently lacking. So I believe we can do better in the hemisphere, and I think we can do better in meeting within that context our international development priorities within the hemisphere. I look forward to an ongoing conversation with you about how we get the best results more broadly for USAID, for foreign assistance, for donors, for NGOs, for the taxpayers. And now I'd like to recognize the Ranking Republican Senator Corker.